We're going to look again in the book of Ruth. I want to finish the story today. Didn't want to just leave it with him getting back into Israel and finding the home back there, because there's a whole lot more that went on in the book of Ruth. Now, we're going to go to chapter 4 and go through verses 1 through 12. But we're going to back up, do a flashback after that, okay? So let's just follow along here. This talks about Boaz and he redeems Ruth, chapter 4, verses 1 through 12. It says, Now Boaz went up to the gate and sat down there, and behold, the close relative of whom Boaz had spoken came by. So Boaz said, Come aside, friend, sit down here. So he came aside and sat down. And he took 10 men of the elders of the city and said, Sit down here. So they came and sat down. Then he said to the close relative, Naomi, who has come back from the country of Moab, sold the piece of land which belonged to our brother Elimelech. And I thought to inform you, saying, Buy it back in the presence of the inhabitants and the elders of my people. If you will redeem it, redeem it. But if you will not redeem it, then tell me, that I may know, for there is no one but you to redeem it, and I am next after you. And he said, I will redeem it. Then Boaz said, On the day you buy the field from the hand of Naomi, you must also buy it from Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of the dead, to perpetuate the name of the dead through his inheritance. The close relative said, I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I ruin my own inheritance. You redeem my right of redemption for yourself, for I cannot redeem it. Now this is the custom in the former times in Israel concerning redeeming and exchanging. To confirm anything, one man took off his sandal and gave it to the other. And this was a confirmation in Israel. Therefore the close relative said to Boaz, Buy it for yourself. So he took off his sandal. And Boaz said to the elders of all the people, You are witness this day that I have bought all that was Elimelech's, and all that was Shilion's, and all that was Mahalan's from the hand of Naomi. Moreover, Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of Melahan, I have acquired as my wife, to perpetuate the name of the dead through his inheritance, that the name of the dead may not be cut off from among his brethren, and from his position at the gate. You are witnesses this day. And all the people who were at the gate and the elders said, We are witnesses. The Lord make the woman who is coming to your house like Rachel and Leah, the two who built the house of Israel. And may you prosper in Ephraim, and also famous in Bethlehem. May your house be like the house of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah, because of the offspring which the Lord will give you from this young woman. That passage was what we call the redemption passage. It was done by one that was called a Boaz, a redeemed kinsman. It is likened to Christ redeeming us. You see, he was our Boaz. He was the one that brought redemption to us through his sacrifice. We're going to learn a little bit more about the story. If you go ahead and move on to the slide, we're going to go a flashback. If you go back to the 3rd chapter of Ruth, I'm not going to read all of this. All of this would be too long to read in the setting. But in the 3rd chapter, Naomi tells Ruth to do something unusual. She tells her to go to the threshing field, and only to Boaz's threshing field, and work with them during the day. Now, it was the custom of the threshers, as they threshed, to leave some grain on the side and not cut so close to the edges that there wouldn't be some grain already on the stalk left, so that those that were widows and those that were poor could come and they could glean the fields. They could gather what they could from the fields for their own bread. So this was the custom of that day, and Boaz's field was basically one in which many came to do that because he was a generous man. So in the 3rd chapter, Naomi tells Ruth, when you go to Boaz's field. And when it comes time in the afternoon for the men to lie down and to rest after the luncheon, then you find where Boaz is at. and you go and cover your feet with the cloth that is on his feet, so that it is an indication to Boaz of a desire of redemption. Well, you see, the covering of the feet was like saying, I'll place you under my wings of protection. And literally, this is what she did. And when Boaz awoke, he looked and he saw that Ruth had placed her feet next to his under the blanket. He rises and tells her to do this. Now go back to your mother, or to Naomi. And before you leave, let me give you what was equivalent to about 40 to 50 pounds of seed to take back with you as a price. It was an engagement price. For he told her, he said, now I must clear up a matter first because I'm not the closest kinsman. There's one that is closer to Naomi than me. But I will take this day and deal with it. She goes back and shows Naomi the seed that was given to her and also tells her all that happens. And Naomi says, then rest here. For what he has done, he will settle this day. He will make sure that this is taken care of. Now, all of this seems kind of strange to us because our culture doesn't do that kind of thing. Matter of fact, our culture's got it backwards. You see, we think it's okay to have sex before marriage. We think it's okay that we can do anything we want to sexually and get away with it because, well, we claim to be Baptists, therefore we can get forgiven. Come on, guys, there's something wrong with that.
Come on, preach.
I think that's what we learned in Corinthians today. I think if you look at our Sunday school lesson, you'll realize that we are just acting like the Corinthians of that day. We are letting immorality and our sexual desires and our pleasures get ahead of glorifying God.
That's right.
We think that what we do in our body doesn't affect our Christian spirit. Let me tell you something. If you think that, there's something wrong with your salvation experience.
Come on. Where's your testimony?
God hasn't touched you.
That's right.
God doesn't allow that kind of behavior. Matter of fact, we are to use the Bible as our guide in our behavior. This young lady acted in according to the custom of that day for a bridal engagement. She went instead of chasing, and matter of fact, that's what Boaz says. She said, I want to commend you for not chasing after a bunch of young men. Going out and trying to find a man. Going out hunting for a man. And you know what? She was a beautiful woman, and she probably could have. Matter of fact, in the past, things like that have happened. I've got a little illustration that says that Ruth gets her man. It says all kinds of strange love potions have been used through the centuries to catch and keep husbands. For example, the ancient Greeks believed that if a girl walked with the udder of a hyena under her left arm, she would get her man. I thought maybe they'd get a reaction. Emperor Caligula was thrown into a fit, so it's told, by a love potion brewed by his wife that was too strong. Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine, said that a brew of donkey's milk and honey would work every time. Marigolds in 16th century England would do the trick, it was believed. And here's the one that I really like. And when the potato was introduced into Spain in 1534, they fetched up to 1,250 pounds for a love food. A potato as a love food. Now, a lot of us have got love handles for potatoes. But I'm not necessarily thinking that that's how you keep your man, okay? Maybe that's where it is that a good cook can keep her man, you know? Naomi and Ruth tried none of this foolishness to get the attention of Boaz, but the method they used was ingenious and innocent. Ruth got her man. Go on to chapter 4, and we read how the rest of the story goes. He goes immediately to the city gate. And there he calls the other kinsman, asked him to come. Now, what was the deal here? Well, the deal was that all business transactions, land and property, had to be done at the city gate, because there were always elders and witnesses around at the city gate. It was probably also the entrance into the city market, because the marketplace would have been at that approach gate, and that's where everybody would come to buy and sell. And so at the city gate, these elders sat and brought judgment on many things, including property purchases. So he calls for this the other kinsman to come and said, here's the thing. You are the nearest to Naomi. Naomi wants to sell the property. Naomi needs to have funds to be able to live by. And he says, the other kinsman said, well, yes, I will purchase that. He said, yes, but here's the rest of the stipulation. If you buy this, you've got to take Naomi to care for, and you've got to take Ruth as your wife. For they are a part of the deal completely. The other kinsman thought, well, wait a minute. That's going to mess up my own inheritance, because I'm going to have to produce a child by Ruth so that Malahan's name can continue on. Since I'm the nearest one, and it won't be really my child, it will be considered Malahan's child. So I really can't mess up my inheritance that way. Let me tell you something. A lot of us are messing up our inheritance.
Come on.
A lot of us are messing up our inheritance by thinking that we can get away with things that we shouldn't be able to get away with.
Mm-hmm.
We're living in a world of centricity. A kind of idealism that anything goes. That I could be a Christian, and I could be a practicing homosexual, and I could be a drunkard, and I could be a whoremonger, I could be a sexual deviant, and still be a Christian.
No.
Ain't no way, Jose.
Jesus makes a difference. Come on.
When Christ comes into our heart, there's supposed to be a change.
Yes.
You see, we have an inheritance through Christ, and He's not going to muddy up that inheritance with all the junk we want to bring in on it.
That's right.
Just like this kinsman realized that his inheritance would be messed up if he did this deal, because he was probably already married, probably already had children, and didn't want to mess up that whole lineage and situation. Folks, the Bible tells me there in Corinthians this morning, it says, do you not know that we are bought with a price?
Right.
Therefore, glorify God in your body and your spirit
Yes.
and your soul. Some of us are messing up our inheritance.
Mm-hmm.
We're letting other things creep into our lives that should not be there. And Satan's out there selling it as fast as he possibly can. And folks, it's not only affecting us, it's affecting our children and our grandchildren and all of the generations that will follow. The man was right in saying, no, I cannot do this because it will mess up my inheritance. He said, Boaz, you're next in line. You want it, you got it. And he takes off his sandal and shows to the witnesses, which is a legal contract in Israel. Don't you wish contracts were that simple today? Last time we did a home refinance loan, there was a stack of papers about like that required our signatures. We had to meet certain specifications credit-wise. All of this was involved, and it took several days to do. I could have given my sandal then, to take care of it. But they wouldn't accept my sandal. But back then, that sealed it. That was done. That meant that he no longer would travel the path of the Goel. He would no longer be the Redeemer kinsman. I'm turning over my responsibility of redemption to Boaz, and Boaz now has it. It's all his. Boaz says, I'll buy it. And the next thing that we see is that after the purchase, there's the birth of a son. In the last part of Ruth, the 4th chapter, verses 13 through 22, we see that wonderful story as it finishes out. You know, kindness always comes back. Boaz was kind. And because of his kindness, his consideration, and his love of the Lord, and the love of his faith, you see his faith played in here. God was going to return to him that kindness. You remember George Beverly Shea? He tells a story about Andronicus and the lion. I mean, I don't know. There's a legend that says Andronicus, who was a Greek Christian and a lover of animals, he and his wife, Bagheera, were traveling through Africa. They encountered a lion, a savage lion, with a thorn in his paw. Andronicus removed the thorn and went on his way. Years later, Andronicus was arrested along with other Christians and thrown to the wild beast. As the Christians prayed and sang hymns, one of the lions, which was the one which Andronicus had removed the thorn, spared Andronicus' life and his wife's. The emperor was so impressed that he pardoned Andronicus and all the other Christians. Kindness returned. Now, we don't know if that story is true, but the moral of the story is very simple. Kindness expressed comes back to bless us. Kindness expressed comes back to bless us. It was so with Boaz. He treated Ruth kindly, permitted her to gather grain from around the edges of the corner of the field, fell in love with her, and enjoyed a full and happy life, plus the blessings of children. You see, we need to understand that's the very purpose of marriage.
Yes.
The very purpose of marriage is not only to satisfy the sexual drive that we have, but it's also to procreate children.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of hard to do that if you're of the same sex. That don't work, folks. That's why I believe that the marriage should be only to a man and a woman.
Yes.
Under the guides of the Bible. That man and woman will be blessed with the Lord as they walk with him, with children. We are blessed with children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. I'm still figuring out how we got 19 great-grandchildren and only had 2 kids. God blesses. He blesses. And they were blessed. The Bible tells me there in chapter 4, something very unusual happened, and a lot of times we forget to realize that this is the genealogy. In verse 16 it says, let's go back first to verse 13. So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife, and when he went into her, the Lord gave her conception. Now notice something here. She had been married to Mahlon for several years and had not conceived a child. In a foreign land, in a foreign situation. Why? Because God's had a purpose. Basically, Ruth was to Boaz almost like a virgin because she had not conceived a child. Sometimes God does things like that. He has his own purpose. And she bore a son. And then the women said to Naomi, Blessed be the Lord, who has not left you this day without a close relative, and may his name be famous in Israel. And may he be to you a restorer, a well of life and nourisher of your old age. For your daughter-in-law who loves you, who is better to you than 7 sons, has borne him. Then Naomi took the child and laid him on her bosom and became a nurse to him. Also the neighbor women gave to her a name, saying, There is a son born to Naomi. And they called his name Obed. He is the father of Jesse, the father of David, the king. Now, this is the genealogy of Perez. Perez begot Hezron. Hezron begot Ram. Ram begot Amminadab. Amminadab begot Nahshon. Nahshon begot Salom. Salom begot Boaz. And Boaz begot Obed. Obed begot Jesse. And Jesse begot David. Those genealogies are important. Well, you see, it was from the line of David that Jesus was born.
Yes.
Think about this. Jesus was an Israelite whose lineage traces back to not one, but 2 foreigners. Rahab and Ruth. Ruth was a Moabitess. Rahab was a harlot. Salvation was to all men, and it was born even before Jesus was born by the genealogy that would bring about Joseph and Mary. God's purpose for mankind is salvation. He wants mankind to be with him.
Yes.
The Bible tells me that whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved.
Amen.
From every race, creed, and color. From every social, economical bracket. From every ideology. Jesus is calling through the Holy Spirit
Yes.
for them to come to him and find the truth and the way. That's why Ruth's story is so important. We see her love, her commitment, her loyalty, but we also see that God blessed those actions by bringing redemption to her and her family through the Word of God. Today you may be wondering how your lives can be changed to become like Boaz, like Ruth, like others examples that we have in the Bible that have followed faithfully. Folks, I want you to know something. I can stand here and preach all day long, but I can't save you. I can bring you the words that can bring you to salvation. But until you accept them, until you believe them, and until you believe in Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, you're going to be in the same condition you came when you came. Maybe you've come in need of the Lord today. We're going to have a verse of invitation. That verse is very simple, just as you are, just as I am, without one plea. My friends, I want you to know that Jesus wants you this morning to be a part of his kingdom, and he a part of